back home. I wonder if I could fit one of those big crane cameras that we had in the studio in here. I mean, I basically know how to operate one now.
Snapdragon could prove to be difficult. Essentially, just not at 90% yet. And if they don't make it to 90% here, and this ends up coming to a fail, that it could swing the war back into, or I guess for the first time.
Okay, I kid, but really, I wanted to take a second to give a huge shout out to Gus, who operates the crane, as well as the whole crew for doing an awesome job in the studio while we were in Burbank. I cannot wait to see the team again, but I know you guys can't wait to dive into all the stories this week, so let's get to it. Our biggest story this week is that it's the beginning of Split 2, and with it, we've got some major roster shakeups, especially with Golden X and Golden XXL. After the Split 1 Open Finals, 3 members of Golden XXL decided it was time to move on and left the team, leaving a huge hole to fill. The team looked to their sister squad, Golden X, for replacements. Mr. Fox, Surge, and Will were replaced by Omar, Powerade, and Ronnie from the Golden X roster. They decided to keep the single X name because, you know, the number of teams with Golden and X in their names wasn't already confusing enough. This looks like a real powerhouse roster on paper, but sometimes it can be tough for a team to come together that quickly. Their camaraderie was put to the test when they went up against Push. The war was brutal. Literally, neither team was able to secure a single 3-star attack. Eric Hamilton struggled, and here, Indy 317 also had a very difficult time on his attack, scoring under 90%. Fortunately for Golden X, nobody on Push was really able to do any better. It felt like a hot and lonely summer night for Danny Zuko because he was hopelessly devoted to this hard push with freeze and rage spells that didn't really generate the kind of damage he needed it to. He ended the attack with a 2-star, 79% attack, leaving Golden X ahead on points to win with only 10 stars. Now, you may have noticed earlier that when Golden X brought in the players from their sister team, that must have left some more players in the lurch. Those players stuck together and formed their own squad with the name of the Unwanted. Little on the nose. With a lot of experience on this team, it should be another roster that can contend for the challenge. Unfortunately, they haven't gelled as a team quite as quickly as Golden X has, as we saw when they took on Underworld X. KPX's Dragon's Charge couldn't overcome Ether's defense, and he stalled out at 92%. Raze tried his luck later with the giant swarm of Hogratus. He had already taken out the town hall earlier and looked to be making good progress into Grom's base, but there was simply too much defense left up. The Hog Rider army started to thin out and ended up in a disappointing time fail at 98%. The Unwanted lost the war, not really getting off to as hot of a start in Split 2 as they would have hoped for. Now, there's one more story we have to talk about, and that's War and Glory's recovery after a disappointing performance in the Split 1 Open Finals. We were able to catch up once again with friend of the show, Hold My Beer, to get his thoughts on the team's performance and on how they're managing those very high expectations for Split 2.
I mean, yes, I'll give them a lot of credit. Empire has some great bases. However, I mean, I know our guys were not totally focused being this Mother's Day, but I do want to give a shout out to them for the bases that they put out there. Our guys had trouble just like reading them very well and figuring out which way to come in to attack them. And, you know, unfortunately, we put up a really low score, and those guys showed up to play, and, you know, they beat us. And, you know, they say in football, any given Sunday, and in Clash of Clans, it's any given war. Once they lost to Empire, I mean, they were like, guys, we just need to win one more war. We're into the Challenger Series. And it just, I mean, it was just one of those nights we just didn't have it. And, yeah, the guys rallied together, and, like, you know, there were some heated conversations in our, like, our group chat that we have on Discord to talk about, you know, the upcoming wars, the current war, and things like that. And everyone just said, let's just focus on ladder 2. It's just one night, and we can win ladder 2. And if we win ladder 2, we're in Challenger. No harm, no foul. You know, unfortunately, we just have to put a bad night of Clash of Clans behind us. I just want to apologize to all the fans out there of War and Glory. We obviously, like, you know, let ourselves down as well as the community. A lot of people thought that we would go through, and, you know, I heard Bash and Eric, you know, just giving us Nicholas. He's mowing the lawn now. Here, Nicholas, just sit with Dad real quick. 1 second. Just 1 second. Now we can play. If you sit for 1 second, we can play. All right. Yeah, just want to apologize to the community. I think that, you know, War and Glory, kind of let everyone down. They let myself down, and you know, I saw Bash and Eric out there, and they were really looking forward to War and Glory coming through and having a glorious night on Mother's Day, and like it just didn't happen. We'll fight through in ladder 2. We'll get stronger. You're going to see us in the Challenger Series. And, you know, a big shout out to the guys that qualified last time. I mean, every single one of them, Empire, Chazmac, Fuzzy, and Vengeful Noobs, they all had great evenings. And, you know, we're looking forward to playing them in the Challenger Series. And, you know, best of luck to everybody else in ladder 2.
Oh, that's great. Nicholas, what do you think?
Can you say go War and Glory? Yeah.
Aw. Well, with Nick's emotional support on their side, and with no changes to the roster, it's no wonder that this Juggernaut team is already well along on the path to redemption. War and Glory took on War Thieves in a totally non-ironic matchup that saw Agent 33 start Split 2 off in a dominant fashion. It must have felt good to get back to 3-starring bases as he overran the Demi's defenses in just over 2.5 minutes. And it wasn't just Agent who was playing with a chip on his shoulder. Rigo Torres got in on the stomp with a 2 minutes, 30-second 3-star of his own against top Eric H. Bowlers and balloons, empowered by Rage, ravaged the southwest part of the base, and they basically were left unchecked the entire attack, eventually being backed up by a small contingent of Hog Riders. With attacks like these, War and Glory was able to easily claim victory in the Battle of the Wars. And there they are, perched atop the standings, right where they feel they belong. Even with the fairly comfortable lead they currently enjoy over second place, you can bet that Nick and the boys will not be letting up on the gas anytime soon. And take a look at some of these new names we're seeing up here. I certainly hope the Flaming Turkeys are here to stay. Watch out, Fuzzy Wuzzy, they might be able to compete for my favorite team name. We'll definitely be checking in on some of these other squads that are in the hunt in the coming weeks. But for now, that's a wrap on our NA recap. So let's head on over to the other side of the pond to see what's shaken down in Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. We start our recap with Strut, who was sort of Europe's version of War and Glory because they went into their open finals as the #1 seed in the region, but fizzled out with 2 disappointing losses and failed to qualify for the challenge. Now they're back, just like War and Glory, with something to prove. They started with JoJo on defense versus Eli. JoJo's defense was set up perfectly, holding Eli to a 2-star. Then it was JoJo's turn to attack, and he went with the royal couple, the King and Queen, to open things up. After softening up the western quadrant of Royal's base, JoJo turned his attention to the south with a swarm of balloons and minions, scoring more than 20% damage in less than 20 seconds. Then it was a matter of cleanup as the balloons and minions went totally unchecked, resulting in the 3-star attack and the win for Strut. Strut continued their quest for redemption when they took on Kurd Region later in week 1. Kurd put up a bit more of a fight than the Bushido Warriors as this attack got started with dragons and balloons. Even after the balloons were knocked down, the dragons continued totally unchecked, laying siege to the entire western region of the base. A couple of those same dragons survived all the way to the very end, chunking down buildings, leading to the 3-star attack and putting Strut on their heels. In another attack for Kurd Region, Study AR went after Bum's base with bowlers, balloons, and a log launcher from the west and the north. Ultimately, he just didn't have what it took to swing all the way down into the south before time would run out. Study scored 2 stars with this attack and gave Strut just the opening they were looking for. After his base successfully held against Study, it was Bum's turn on attack versus Dark Punisher. He unleashed a Grand Warden and a King on the western part of the base to devastating effect. His siege continued into the north, rampaging everything in his path and eventually securing the 3-star attack. Then it was Mask's turn to strut his stuff and put the seal on his team's victory with his attack against Kurd's war. The queen that wouldn't quit with the healers to support rushed up from the south to meet up with the main vanguard of minions and dragon riders that were swarming in from the northeast. A well-placed rage spell would help take out what little defensive structures remained, eventually securing the 3-star and leading Strut to another much-needed win. Now, with a performance like that versus a team as solid as Strut, we've got to spend some time talking about Kurd Region. Although they didn't make it to the Split 1 Open Finals, they are off to a really strong start in Split 2, not only with that gritty performance against Strut, but also in their other matches like this one against Benelux Esports. Yadgar started his attack with mighty force, showing balloons, dragons, a Grand Warden, and an Archer Queen. This attack alone ended up netting him 50% in just the first minute of his swing. The siege just kept on pushing, and we even got to see an uncommon miner get thrown into the mix. From here, it was just cleanup as Yadgar scored the 3-star victory for Kurd Region. Later in the war, STZR took his turn attacking Obsi. Brute Force was the name of the game as he sent in a huge force of balloons and electro dragons backed up by a Grand Warden. On top of that, a battle blimp filled with balloons blitzed straight for the town hall, getting that early star and also putting the balloons in a good spot for further damage. ZR's units raged on the north side of Obsi's base, overwhelming the Expo with the sheer number of units. The Royal Champion and Archer Queen followed up with further damage on top of this pressure. To add salt to injury, a perfect freeze on 5 defensive structures kept ZR's units alive while dishing out more damage. From there, it was just easy pickings, a 3-star victory for Kurd Region. These impressive performances were enough to land the Iraqi team in 8th place, which, if they hold, will be good enough to get them into the Split 2 Open Finals, where they'll have a chance at qualifying for the challenge. And remember, just like in Split 1, the first place finishers get to automatically enter the challenge, skipping the Open Finals altogether. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 2 regions. 2 #1 seeds who lost unexpectedly, and 2 teams on that road to redemption. Will War Glory and Strut have what it takes to advance to the challenge? You'll have to keep tuning in right here to find out. And now that our time this week has come to an end, allow me to leave you with one pearl of wisdom. Never get baited and trapped in a tornado. See you next week.